Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. Round 1. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now, in this video I want to talk about the first presidential debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Going into it, the momentum was very much with Trump due to his constant campaigning throughout the previous few months, while Biden has actually done very little campaigning. I think many in the online political sphere believed that Trump would dominate this debate due to his high energy and his confidence in his message compared to the low energy of Joe Biden. I mean, there's a reason why Trump calls him Sleepy Joe after all. So, let's get into the topics. First up, the Supreme Court and the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett to it. Now, first off, I think it's important to say neither Trump nor Biden had anything bad to say about her. So I don't think there was any problem with either of them in the person being nominated. It was the fact that anyone was being nominated. Biden stated, and this is a common line from many of the Democrats, right? He stated that the people should have a say, believing that they should wait until after the election so the people get a president who will nominate who they want. Trump responded exceptionally well to it by using one of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's lines against him. Because Ruth Bader Ginsburg said in 2016, when Obama nominated someone before the election, in the election year, that the president who nominates someone isn't elected for 3 years, he's elected for 4. So just because it's an election year doesn't mean he has no right to nominate someone. And I think that kind of shut down Biden's belief on the whole thing, really. He kind of beat him down a bit there. Next up, healthcare. Now, one of the biggest points of argument was Obamacare and what the different positions were. Trump's main position on it is that he wants to get rid of it due to quite a lot of the damage it has caused in the quality of healthcare that's provided in America. Biden favours expanding Obamacare as he believes it'll get more people getting coverage. When it comes to Obamacare, I actually understand Trump's arguments against it. Because Obama kind of admitted that it didn't go the way even he promised it would. Because he said, when Obamacare was brought in, if you like your doctor, you will get to keep your doctor. If you like your healthcare plan, you will get to keep your healthcare plan. A lot of people who liked their doctors and liked their healthcare plans lost their doctors and healthcare plans under Obamacare. So it's an interesting one. Now, Biden brought up Trump's poor healthcare record in office, and I can kind of understand that to a certain extent, because Trump could only really go to the fact that he had lowered drug prices, which from what I've seen he has, but not to the extent that he portrays. Trump kind of responded in a very brutal way, but the right way, I think. He responded with the chaos that happened in the VA when Biden was basically coordinating it. And to be honest though, that was a subject. That was a controversy and a scandal that Biden should have tried to avoid at all costs, because he was going to get killed by that the second it was brought up. And he was. On coronavirus, because this did take up quite a bit of the discussion, although it was across several topics. On coronavirus, Biden portrayed Trump's response as very poor. And in some ways I actually agree with that. But Trump responded quite well by bringing up Biden's relatively poor response to the swine flu. Next up, the economy. On taxes, Trump refuted the New York Times article on his taxes, saying that he paid very, very little. I think it was like $780 or something that it claimed he had paid in federal income taxes. He refuted it, saying he'd paid a lot more, and I think it was millions and millions he said it was, but he wasn't really specific. I actually kind of understand why he wasn't specific, because this is a similar attack that the Democrats kind of went at him with in 2016, but it turned out to be pretty much nothing anyway. But Trump also kind of raised a good point on tax codes, specifically the one that Biden kind of put forward, that Trump apparently used when he paid such little tax. And it was that when tax codes are brought in, when tax season comes around, rich people like Trump will hire people to analyse the tax codes for the loopholes that will be in them, because there will be. And they'd use those loopholes so they could pay less tax. And it's only smart people that would do that. And he's right there. The whole point of kind of changing the tax system is that you close those loopholes when it comes. It's basically like computers and attacks and cyber attacks. You don't really realise that there's a gap in security until it's exploited, and then you close that gap so it can't be exploited in the future. That's kind of how taxes and tax loopholes should be dealt with. Now, Biden made a statement that didn't make much sense. He said that Trump blew the economy when he got into office, despite the strength of the Trump economy before COVID, and actually after COVID, because it's actually coming back in a very strong way. Okay, race relations and law and order. Chris Wallace brought up the Charlottesville lie and basically asked a question on it out of context with the very fine people line. Now, I'm not going to get into detail on that, but as it's been so clearly kind of debunked with that statement, as that line is the only thing that's used, not the several lines before it where he condemned white supremacists. I do think Chris Wallace lost a bit of credibility with that one. Biden's main claim was that Trump has done nothing for black Americans. Look at the economy. They've benefited from that. Black people aren't afraid to kind of speak up a lot more than they used to, because they're not afraid of being conservative. They're not afraid that they'll be silenced if they come out as having a different opinion. That's why Candace Owens, Brandon Tatum, Kim Klacik are such powerful voices these days. Now, Biden kind of mixed himself up a bit. He started talking about systematic racism in the justice system and the law enforcement system. But then he went on to say that most police officers are good men and women, but there are a few bad apples. So which is it? Are there a few bad apples in which some of them are actually racist? Or is the whole thing racist? Doesn't make sense. Next topic that came up was actually one I found quite interesting in how it kind of played out. I was expecting it to be kind of one-dimensional really and quite quick, but it was quite interesting, and that was climate change. Trump showed that his position on climate change wasn't actually that unreasonable. He did say that humans, by producing more CO2, are increasing the heat, increasing the heat of the planet by some degree, but he wasn't really specific on how much, which is the right thing to do, I think. And I think that was an interesting one, because a lot of people kind of go that, he doesn't believe human produced CO2 does any effect. Right? The whole kind of portrayal is that he's a climate change denier. But he actually takes the more reasonable response, I think. Joe Biden is much more the environmentalist. And actually, Trump was actually arguing that the different policies that the left has been using were actually bad policies. And he made very good arguments to why they were bad policies. Now, of course, one of the biggest ones was the wildfires. What about wildfires? What about the idea that they're caused by climate change? Trump actually explained quite well, I thought, that it's because forest management policies, which actually worked effectively for many years, were banned for their alleged unfriendly environmental effects. One of those policies is controlled burning. Basically, you burn small areas, so once a wildfire gets to that area, it can't progress. So a controlled burn is basically you burn a small area and then extinguish it very quickly. So there's nothing more to fuel a wildfire from continuing. Now, Biden brought up several environmental policies which have proven through history that they're not very effective. Brought up goals that wouldn't work, and also kind of disregarded the idea of cost. Some of the policies were he wants to get a net zero CO2 by 2050. He wants to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord, which Trump left earlier in his term. He wants to reduce fracking, and he wants to upgrade 4 million buildings to become more environmentally friendly. Now, the buildings one, that's what's going to cost. Fracking, you've lost a lot of support with that one, because fracking actually has the majority of the support. Net CO2, how is that goal going to be achieved? Because no one's even come close to it, and I don't think America's going to get anywhere close to it by 2050. Biden said that he doesn't support the Green New Deal, which kind of took me a little bit by surprise, and I think I kind of took Trump a little bit by surprise. But Trump kind of took the piss and went, right, well, people, the radical left won't like that, especially AOC won't like that. The final subject was election integrity. Biden said that Trump wants to dissuade voters from actually voting with his voter fraud claims. He also claimed that that there's no evidence that mail-in ballots actually lead to voter fraud. Trump brought up several cases, including the ones in Manhattan and New Jersey, as well as the case where a couple of military ballots that were all for Trump were dumped into the trash. And actually, a statistic came up that in 2016, 1% of mail-in votes were invalidated. All those voters were disenfranchised by mail-in ballots. So what are my thoughts on the first debate? I don't think anyone really won, to be honest. I think Trump tried to get a knockout punch kind of early on and kept trying through the debate to get one, but he never got one. He never did. And I actually think Biden was a little bit more level-headed than Trump was. Trump was a bit more aggressive in his stance. Biden, while he got a little frustrated here and there, which did lead to some name calling, which, of course, there was going to be name calling against Trump. It's the Democrats, although Biden hasn't been that bad with it. There was no sign of his usual confused state, which has kind of become his signature, really. He was much clearer and much more on the ball than he usually is, which I actually must admit I was pleasantly surprised by. So what do you guys think? Share your thoughts with me in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear them. And if you like this video, hit that thumbs up button and don't forget to subscribe to keep up with my latest videos. Round 1 was quite evenly matched. It's what happens from here on that I think could be the difference. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.